Mr. President, when you last year addressed a press conference with Norwegian journalists in Dar es Salaam, one of the papers used the following headline: "The Tanzanian roads towards socialism is not as easy as expected." Do you really expect this road towards socialism and development to be easy? And if not, what do you identify as the main obstacles?
Well, I don't know how the headline came to be formulated, but I've never suggested or expected that the road to socialism in Tanzania or indeed any third world countries could be easy. I've never thought so, and in actual fact, I've always tried to explain to our own people here that it's going to be very difficult. I've tried to explain to our friends outside Tanzania. Some of our friends outside Tanzania, when they read about what we say we are planning to do, they come to the conclusion that we're actually doing those things. When we state an objective, they believe that we have actually achieved that objective. And I've tried very often to disillusion them, to discourage them in that belief, to let them know that there is a gap between the stated objectives and the implementation of objectives. You say, what are the difficulties? One, you can't have socialism with poverty. We are a poor country. In actual fact, present division, first world, second world, third world, I'm told actually we don't even belong to the third world, we belong to the fourth world. So here's a very poor country trying to be socialist. Now, socialism and poverty don't go together. And precisely because we are poor, there are many things which even a welfare state, a capitalist welfare state, takes for granted, we can't take for granted. So some of our people can go to school, others can't go to school. Some of the people have decent houses, some don't. Some of our people can get decent medical attention, others can't. And this is going to be so for a long time until we have solved the problem of poverty. We are dealing with the problem of institution building, and the fact that we're building socialist institutions is an immense help, but we are distributing poverty, we're not distributing. So this is one of the things, and it produces the others, the lack of education, the lack of technical know-how. And so the road to socialism in a country like Tanzania cannot be easy, and I've always been saying so.
So you are a bit worried about the tendency towards a more rosy or idealized picture which sometimes is given in the Scandinavian press. So you are a bit worried about
Yes, I'm worried. I'm worried. I'm worried about my friends believing that Tanzania has achieved what it proposes it wants to do. Because quite frankly, if a friend of mine in Norway reads the Arusha Declaration and then says, how wonderful, see what the Tanzanians are doing. I'm worried if he comes here and he finds we are not doing, or we have not achieved what the Arusha Declaration says we should achieve. I'm afraid I might lose a friend. And I don't want to lose my friends simply because they think we are better than we actually are.
You mentioned that you have outlined some general strategies or some kind of philosophy. You have given one of your most well-known essays, the title Socialism, the Rational Choice. What do you mean by the rational choice in this context?
I mean that the third world countries, if they are serious about their independence, independence from foreign control, so that they are really masters in their own home. And B, they are serious about their development, that they want to develop their own countries, and that this development should be directed at serving their own people. I'm saying, if third world countries are really serious about those two objectives, independence and development for the people, they have no choice. They have no choice except to go socialist. Why? Take Tanzania. I don't have indigenous capitalists here. They're not there. So, for Tanzania to choose a capitalist form of development is really to choose massive foreign intervention in the development of my country. I don't have local capitalists, local entrepreneurs, and so forth. I don't have local investment. So I have to invite capitalists from Britain, from West Germany, from Japan, from the United States, and so forth. But they will not come. A capitalist is not going to come to Tanzania as a philanthropist or as a missionary. He's coming to invest for his good. He'll want to make the kind of decisions, and he'll want to see my government here making the kind of decisions that are going to be of benefit to him. So I'm saying in that respect, how could I pretend that I'll make that the government of Tanzania will control the decision making? That we can say we are independent, decision making is ours, we're making this decision. How can I say we are developing our country for the good of our own people? When in actual fact, these people are not coming as philanthropists and they're not coming as missionaries. They're coming as capitalists. They want to develop and they want to invest in the kind of thing that is useful to them. If I want low-cost housing, they're not going to spend their money to build houses for the poor people here. If I want shoes for the poor people in Tanzania, they will not make shoes for the poor people. They may not find there is very much money in that. They want to make decisions which will give them the kind of dividends they need. And those decisions could easily conflict with A, the independence of my country, and B, the development, that kind of development which will serve the people of Tanzania. And that's why I'm saying, if really a third world country is serious about it, it doesn't have its own indigenous capitalists, its own indigenous capital. It wants to be independent, be able to make its own decisions for the development of its own people. Then I say we have no choice. The rational choice is a socialist choice.
One of the main parts in the Tanzanian road to socialism, of course, is the rural policy. Could you in brief outline the main ideas, firstly, behind Ujamaa or villagization program, and then to indicate what has been accomplished so far and what are the problems with this process? Because this is a part which is even, as you know, outside Tanzania very much. In terms of the proper way of increasing the production, could it be just to stabilize the situation, or just to change the social structure, not the economic structure. And it's sometimes, as you know, in the Western press, even discussed, is it right to use force? Are there some cases where this has been done, and so on? And then also in a more positive way, of course, being discussed as an alternative to the capitalist agriculture strategy or the large-scale capital-intensive technology which some other countries are using.
Well, I think I can easily state what it is we want to do, which in the rural areas, again, it's easier to state it than to implement. What do we want to do? We say development is by the people and for the people. It can't be anything else. It's got to be by the people and for the people. Our people live in the rural areas. The vast majority of our people live in the rural areas. So if development is by the people and for the people, development is going to be in the rural areas. It's got to be directed there. What should we do then? We should organize our people in the rural areas for their development. We're a large country, scattered population. Anything you call development is a product of people working together, always. There is no development which is some miracle or anything. All human development, anything you call development, is a product of people working together. People can work together for a capitalist. They can work together for a feudalist. They can work together for themselves. But if they want real development, they've got to cooperate. They've got to work together or be made to work together for somebody else. Our people are scattered. Our people, this population in our rural areas is scattered. So development is for the people and by the people. They've got to be organized in such a way that they can work together. Hence our emphasis on the villages. We must live in communities where people can work together and where also it is possible for the state to help to respect where where the people can work together, and B, where the state can put in services like a school. We're so poor that it is ridiculous that we should build a school somewhere, put a classroom somewhere, which is enough for 45 children, but we have only 20 children in that classroom. Because the population is so scattered, we can't get the other 25 to reach the classroom. It's ridiculous that we should build a dispensary which can serve 10,000 people, but it serves only 5,000, because the population is so scattered. The other 5,000 can't reach it. In order that we may make maximum use of our limited resources, then really our population should live in communities where these services can reach the maximum number of people who need these services. So the first thing the first major reform we felt was absolutely necessary in our rural areas was to get our people to live in villages. And when we announced this policy in 1962, this was before the Arusha Declaration, so that this had nothing to do with socialism at all. It wasn't really part of socialism. It was not a follow-up to the Arusha Declaration. But it was, if you like, again, a rational choice. If you are going to bring about development, people must be in a position where they can get services and they can work together. So we announced this program since 1962, and it has been going on. A couple of years back, we decided the necessity for this program must now be understood. There can't be many people in the country who don't understand this necessity. After we had been explaining this for 12 years, and we decided now we move into the villages. So we moved into the villages. Now I think most of the population in Tanzania lives in villages. This is where we're being criticized. We forced people to live in villages. I wish their critics could come. We did use some pressure. In some places, it's possible we used a little more pressure than we should have used. But when you are carrying out a huge program like that, I would be amazed that we would accomplish it without making some mistake somewhere. But that's the program of living together. Then the problem of services. We have not really provided the services. If you went now, of course, if you went in some of the villages now, you'll find some of those services. You'll find some of the villages, they have a dispensary, or they have a school, or they have some water, or they have a shop, and so forth. Some of our villages have either one or two, some even three of the services we've said are necessary in those villages. Others don't have any. We still have many villages which don't have any of those services. When it comes to the actual ideological content of the villages, we're saying Ujamaa village is distinct from a village, people living together. Ujamaa village for us is a community in the rural areas where the people are living together, working together for their common good. Very few can be defined in this way. Our people are living together now, but in most of the villages, in most of the 6,000 villages, the working together element is very small. They work separately, but at least they work. I'm sure they work more now than they worked 2-3 years back when they lived scattered. Because there is also a dialectic of living together. There is even competition. We have virtually abolished exploitation in the rural areas. Our rural areas are not socialist areas, but they're not capitalists exploiting the people. So the people are either working together for their common good, or they're working individually for their own family good. There is one thing we don't have in the rural areas, and we're not going to tolerate very much, is exploitation of those people. So some things we have achieved, some we haven't. It's going to be a long journey before we achieve all that we propose to achieve.
Apart from this Ujamaa village aspect, one of the most common used political words in Tanzania, and when people outside Tanzania are talking about your country, that is sail-free alliance. Do you see any contradictions in gaining sail-free alliance and the amounts of money being borrowed from the World Bank, development assistance, foreign-based technology in state-owned enterprises, and so on? Are there any contradictions in this?
I don't see a contradiction myself. When I say we have to be self-reliant, I'm stating something which is quite simple, really. I'm not saying something which is other people are not saying. I'm saying the development of any country, the development of Tanzanians, the development of Norwegians, the development of Englishmen is their responsibility. So it's the development of Tanzania is the responsibility of Tanzanians. It can't be anybody else's responsibility. The development of Norwegians is the responsibility mainly of Norwegians. It can't be anybody else's responsibility. It's a big mistake for the countries of the third world to think there is some uncle somewhere who is going to be responsible for their development. And we did go through this kind of silly mistake. You sit there and you say, money is going to pour in, technicians are going to come in from everywhere. And we can just sit down and wait for uncle to come and do this development. And really we had to say to ourselves, this is ridiculous, it is absurd. The responsibility, the primary responsibility for the development of your country is yours. It can't be anybody else's. You've got to be self-reliant. This is what we're saying. But it's not really something particularly profound. This is a simple statement of fact. Everybody knows this everywhere in the whole world knows it. We had to emphasize it because we were probably being slightly silly, because we thought it could be someone else's responsibility when it's our own responsibility. So that's what we are saying. But it's when you say we want to be self-reliant, we have to be self-reliant, you are not saying at the same time, well, we are self-sufficient, because it's ridiculous. We are not self-sufficient. I want to open up a university. I have to start a university. One of my major problems is the fact of education. We don't like it. We don't have educated people. So I have to start a university. Whether it was a good decision to start a university or not, I don't know. That's a different thing. But I start a university.
I'm coming from Zambia. So
Yeah, so I start a university. I can't start that university with Tanzanian professors because I don't have them. So I have to go out and borrow professors from elsewhere to come and help me to establish a university. I want to build. I want to build a dam. I have no oil. We're not particularly rich in oil. I don't know. We have no oil at all. It may be there, but I don't know whether it's there. I don't have it. And oil at present is taking too much of my mind. But I have some rivers. And I could build dams on those rivers and beginning to get hydroelectricity to help us in the little industries we are beginning to establish. I don't have the money. I don't have the technical know-how. I can't just sit here until I get the money. When am I going to get the money to build a sizable dam or get the technicians to build a sizable dam? I couldn't begin. So I go to the World Bank. I go to Sweden. And I go to these other countries and I explain my problem. And they say, fine, we can lend you some money. I say, thank you very much. How long can I take to pay? If they tell me, 2 years, I say, no, I can't pay. We are so poor, we can't afford to pay this in 2 years. And they say, 50 years. I say, thank you very much. I want a railway to link Tanzania and Zambia. I need this railway. Zambia needs this railway. We can't build it from our own resources. We know we can't build this railway from our own resources. We try hard everywhere, and they say, no, you people, no. So I say to Chairman Mao, Chairman, can you help me to build this railway? He says, yes. And Chairman helps me to build that railway. Now I say, I make a big distinction. I make a distinction myself between self-reliance and self-sufficiency. That's one aspect of it. But there is another aspect of it, I'm saying. There is at present a kind of built-in exploitation. You said you were going to raise that problem. There is a kind of built-in exploitation of the poor by the rich through the present system of trading. There is a built-in transfer of resources from the poor to the rich, instead of the other way around. Now, so I'm beginning to say we need some of this money back. When I say this, I'm not saying I don't want my country to be self-reliant. It's precisely because I want my country to be self-reliant that I want my money back.
There is much talk these days in all countries about the new economic world order, and you touched upon it. How would you characterize in brief the present or prevailing world economic order, and how is Tanzania affected? If you could give some examples of how Tanzania is affected by this present world order or disorder in trade, technology, shipping, and monetary system.
Well, I'm saying we are one world. If Tanzania was on one planet and the United States was on another planet and Western Europe was on another planet, then you could come and look at our poverty and say, this is your own business. We are not. We are one world, we're here. We trade together. And I'm saying in this trading together, where we produce sisal, and we have to sell this sisal to someone in order to buy from someone else something that we need for our own development. We produce this sisal, we sell it to Europe at a given price. we want tractors from Europe for our own development. What do we find happening? What we find happening is that the price of sisal is not in our control. We don't control the price of sisal at all. The price of the tractors is not in our control either. So what is happening? What is happening is that we are selling cheap, we are buying dear. And the decision for the cheapness of our goods and for the dearness of the goods we buy is made by someone else. I'm saying this is the system. And so my sisal is affected, my coffee is affected, my cotton is affected, exports, I'm exporting. No control at all over these prices. And this was true of all the commodities, actually, until the Arabs, until the oil producers discovered, that theirs was such an important commodity that they could gang up and also begin to determine the price of their own commodity. But they are lucky. I take off my hat to them. I say, go on. But I have no oil. But for the rest of us, even that power of the oil producers is a problem for us now. The oil producers have this power. Their oil is now expensive. I'm not very developed. So the Arabs or the oil producers meet and they say, now what are we going to do? So we put up the price of oil by 15%. Was it recently 15%? Or was it 10%? The latest? The latest was 10%. They put it up by 10%. That is 70 million shillings. That's taxing Tanzania. We were taxed 70 million shillings by that decision. I have to pay now 70 million shillings more to buy oil. But this is not going to be the end, because the producers of manufactured goods are going to put that cost, to add that cost on the tractor which I'm going to need. So on the one hand, I'm going to pay the Arabs 70 million shillings. But because also the producers of the tractors are going to say, the Arabs have put it by 70% and 10%, and it's going to cost them a lot more. So the prices of their own buses and their own tractors, which I need here, is going to go up. So I'm going to pay the Arab, and I'm going to pay the producer of the manufacturer of the tractor and the bus. This is an unfair situation. This is the present position. And I'm saying this position must change. We must find some method of changing this situation, because otherwise, really, we can't win. And I'm saying the international community does realize there is a problem here, and we could really, if we wanted to, sit down and find a method of dealing with this problem.
Manesco.
You said it's necessary to find a kind of solution to this problem. Are you an optimist in the short run? I have in mind the conference in Nairobi in May this year, the UNCTAD conference, which will deal with or presumably take some decisions or recommendations on the new economic world order. How do you regard, or is you an optimist on the outcome of this conference?
I'm an optimist in the long run. I'm not an optimist in the short run. In the long run, yes. In the long run, a solution will have to be found, because quite frankly, if it's not found, there is going to be tremendous conflict in the world between the poor and the rich, because this is a built-in exploitation, and people will not accept exploitation willingly. One day they'll fight. I'm saying in the long run, I'm optimistic. In the short run, I'm not. They're going to argue and argue and argue and say, is indexation of prices of primary commodities a good thing? And we've argued until eventually now some nations which did not accept indexation now believe that it could be done. How do you do it? And they're going to argue a long time as to how you do it. How do you return some money to the poor countries for their own development? And you say 0.7% of gross national product, and it takes a long time before any country reaches this, and so forth. But so I'm not expecting a miracle at Nairobi in May. I'm expecting more clarity, that certainly the poor countries will prove, there's no doubt, they'll demonstrate their seriousness in this, and that they require a change. The rich countries, I think, are beginning to understand that you must change the situation. It must not this situation could not continue like this. So decisions will be made. I'm sure some decisions are going to be made in the right direction. I'm sure. I don't believe that that conference is going to end without some decisions being made in the right direction. How fundamental they are going to be, I don't know. And how, once you've made those decisions, how quickly they are going to be implemented, I don't know, because usually you make a decision and the implementation is very slow, point by point. But I repeat, in the long run, I am an optimist. The human community will discover a method of sharing fairly the resources of this earth. In the short term, and especially May in Nairobi, I can't say I'm very much of optimist. They will not solve our problems in May, but I hope that they will be able to make some important decisions, and that when they've made them, they'll at least try to implement them.
During this situation of economic crisis, what kind of measures have been taken within Tanzania to safeguard the interests of the poorer part of the population, that is the people who are usually most affected by inflation and by economic crisis? What are the steps taken inside Tanzania?
Inside Tanzania, what can we do? We can do very little. We shared our poverty. As usual, we shared our poverty more. Prices went up, and prices went up for two reasons. One, this external reason, this major external reason on which we had no control. Other internal reasons, some of which, again, over which we had no control, because if the rains don't come, I can't ask the rains to come. My father was a rainmaker, but he died without showing me how it's done. So there is nothing you can do. And so we had shortages of food and so forth, and if you have shortages of food, prices go up. So what we really did was to redistribute the burden, and we felt when a situation like that happens, the poor suffer more. The rich, we don't have rich people in Tanzania, but we're not equally poor. And so what we really did was to get the better off, to take much more of the burden, a little bit more of the burden, and ease the problem to the poor by increasing the wages of the people below, and fight a lot of production. We are fighting. We are doing a lot of making a lot of noise to try and produce our own food, and those two measures were within our own capacity. They helped a little bit, but they didn't really solve the problem. We have stopped imports of commodities which we really don't need, and now we import the goods we import are goods we need for our development, or medicine which we need for our own people. We don't manufacture our own pharmaceuticals, and that helps a little bit. But the major problem still remains.
How do you regard the outcome of the farming as a matter of life and death campaign?
Well, if the rains had been good last year, we would have. If the rains had been optimum, we would have actually last year produced a lot more food than we had done any time previously, because the people did work very hard, and this is the same this year also. The people are working extremely hard. So at least the people of Tanzania, all the people, including the urban people, have understood the importance of food production. At least that thing we have understood. And if you go around Dar es Salaam, you'll find some places where, under the colonial time, we used to grow flowers, roses and other types of flowers. Now we grow maize. So the importance of food production has been understood. We are working hard. I think we're working hard. We're working harder now in the rural areas than we ever did before. But our techniques, I can't say our techniques have improved tremendously. And so we say, we are working hard, yes, but let's try and see if we can also improve our own methods of working. But the people are working hard.
Thank you very much for this part dealing with Tanzania and the international economic world order. If we turn for a moment to the liberation struggle in the Southern Africa, which is preoccupying a lot of people at the moment. To start with Zimbabwe, you were among the presidents who, a year ago, gave the discussions and negotiations a new chance in Zimbabwe. How do you assess the situation at the moment?
Well, the short answer is that now I'm very pessimistic. We did encourage a negotiated settlement of the problem of Zimbabwe when we felt that perhaps because of the changed circumstances in Southern Africa, and by the changed circumstances I meant the decolonization of the Portuguese colonies, it was possible for the southern regimes to see sense and say, let's negotiate, because there are only two ways it can be done. It's either through negotiations, and you bring about majority rule, or guerrilla fighting. And Forster of South Africa sounded as if he had come to the conclusion that Rhodesia should achieve its majority rule through negotiations. We thought, fine, if that is the case, we'll encourage them to talk. Because really it's much better that if people can achieve their independence without shedding blood, they should achieve their independence without shedding blood. There is no special pleasure in getting and shedding blood. My own country here achieved independence without shedding blood, and if I can help others to achieve their independence without shedding blood, I'll do my best. So we encouraged these talks. But we came to the conclusion as early or as early as late. We came by July last year. We came to the conclusion that although we desired majority rule, the ANC desired majority rule, and we even believe Foster desired majority rule, the British desired majority rule. The one element which mattered very much, that was Smith, did not want majority rule, and majority rule he would not willingly accept majority rule. He would have to be forced to accept majority rule. And by July, we came to the conclusion that all the pressures which had been built up, which might conceivably make Smith yield to majority rule, many of those pressures had been dissipated. South Africa had already removed her troops from Rhodesia. That was virtually her maximum threat to Rhodesia. South Africa could not apply sanctions, economic sanctions, against Rhodesia. So really, I felt we felt South Africa has now reached a position when she can't apply very much more pressure on Rhodesia. And Smith, I think, realized that. And Smith actually began to take the offensive against Foster. The ANC, which was united, that unity was a form of pressure on Smith. As long as the ANC appeared united, this was a form of pressure on Smith. Smith had succeeded in splitting it, and they were now quarreling much more amongst themselves than quarreling with Smith. It was not very evident to Smith that really this second alternative which they were talking about, guerrilla fighting, that there was anybody really who was among the ANC people who was really preparing this credible alternative, which was guerrilla fighting. Smith was quite clever, I think, and he felt there was nothing. There was nothing very much. He miscalculated a little bit, but only a little bit. And so by July, we came to the conclusion that Smith had come to his own conclusion that now he could dig in and say no majority rule. And we said, well, in that case, we go back to the second alternative, and that we must prepare now really for guerrilla fighting. And guerrilla fighting has started. And how long it's going to take until it brings Smith back to the conference table more seriously, I don't know.
What kind of assistance do you think that could be given these Bedouin liberation fighters from outside, from countries like Tanzania or from countries outside Africa? And how well prepared do you think the liberation fighters are for this next stage or this second alternative?
Well, they're fighting. I mean, they're now fighting. Smith knows they're fighting. Yesterday they reported, yesterday and today I think, they reported that they had another second major clash where, according to Smith, 17 terrorists, as he calls them, were killed, and 4 of his own troops were killed. Guerrilla fighting is going on, and it is guerrilla fighting, and we have the Liberation Committee here, and we, on behalf of the OAU, we receive arms for the Liberation Committee, and we've said this completely frankly. We've always said it. We want to be believed by our friends and our enemies in two things. We mean it when we say that we prefer to win independence without shedding blood. We mean it. We couldn't demonstrate it more, that belief more, than during these talks on Zimbabwe. President Kaunda went as far as meeting Forster. We could not demonstrate that commitment to negotiate a settlement more than we did during the last 14 months. But we said we want both our friends and our enemies to believe us also, that we mean it when we say that if we can't win independence through negotiated means, and the people of that given country, in this case Zimbabwe, are willing to fight, we will back them up. We will take arms wherever we can get them, and we will pass those arms to them, and we will give them all the facilities that are within our own power to give them. And this is what is going to happen.
At the same time, there are talks taking place between Nkomo and Smith, and between Smith and some British officials. So to sum it up, you don't expect any positive result to come out of these negotiations or talks?
No, because I don't expect miracles in this. I've said that there was a time when we really were putting maximum pressure on Smith, and that pressure did not produce results. At present, Joshua and a faction of the ANC are talking to Smith. I say it would be a miracle that when there were all these pressures, pressure from South Africa, pressure from the four presidents, pressure from a united ANC, when all these pressures were impinging on Smith, Smith did not yield. When all these pressures have now been dissipated and Smith is left with Joshua alone, that at this point, then Smith says, now I'm accepting majority rule. I said, this is really absurd, and I've always said absurd. I've said privately and publicly that these talks, yes, if it's a question of foolery, a kind of foolery, yes, they can go on as a kind of foolery, but they will not really achieve the results. The results will come when Smith is convinced that the Africans can take over by force. When he becomes convinced that they'll take over, he can be called to London, to a conference in London, and he will go. At present, if you call him, he will not go. He has not felt it. We've got to build more realistic pressures. Smith is not a fool. Smith is very intelligent. He has played around with many people since 1965. He's very confident. He's a very self-confident person, and he's not going to yield to people like Joshua. People. He's going to yield to pressure, and that pressure is not there. And I'm saying it will take a long time to build up those pressures, and they're being built because the people of Rhodesia are not going to accept minority. And now they've taken up arms. They're not going to drop down those arms anymore. Bill Smith goes to London to a constitutional conference which is more meaningful.
To turn to the situation in Angola and Namibia. As you know, in some Western countries, the presence of Soviet and Cuban support to the MPLA government been denounced. What are your feelings about this presence and this support, and what will be the implications for the rest of Southern Africa of this?
I'm very grateful to the Russians and the Cubans for two stages of the liberation of Angola. When MPLA was fighting the Portuguese, all the communist countries, including Russia and Cuba, were helping us. They were giving us the necessary assistance until the Portuguese were defeated in Guinea-Bissau, in Mozambique, and in Angola. And the OAU, the whole of the OAU, sent several missions to Russia, to the communist countries of Eastern Europe, to China, to Cuba, to say thank you very much for the help you are giving us. So I'm repeating, I thank those people very much for giving us the arms to help the liberation movements to fight against the Portuguese. Without them, we would not have won. And the Portuguese would not incidentally have liberated themselves The communists assisted us to liberate Angola, Mozambique. The communist countries helped us to liberate Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, and Portugal. They would not have that freedom now, but for those arms we received from the communist countries. So I say thank you very much to them. The South Africans decided this time, whoever fooled them, I don't know, they decided that they were going to try and take the place of the Portuguese in Angola. And I thank the Russians and the Cubans very much for the aid they gave to MPLA to push the South Africans out. Those who try to turn this as into a competition between the Russians and the Americans, it's their own business. This liberation has been going on for a long time there. There was nothing new. The new element there was that the South Africans put in troops for the first time in an independent African state. And that state had to defend itself. And it needed friends. It's not the first state that has asked for aid from friends. And they asked for aid from traditional friends, not new friends. And this shout, this was something new, is really ridiculous, absurd.
So it's, in your view, it's South Africa, the South African regime, and the powers who are supporting South Africa with investments and arms, who are the real danger or threat to the peoples of Southern Africa, and not USSR and Cuba.
For me, the danger were the Portuguese, were the minority regimes of Southern Africa, of Rhodesia and South Africa. For years we are seeking for aid to help us to deal with those dangers, and whoever gives us aid is our friend, and those people have given us aid. They're our friends.
In some Scandinavian countries at the moment, there is a campaign going on to put pressure on the governments to stop the development assistance to Cuba as a reaction against the Cuban support to the MPLA government. Would you like to comment on this?
All I'll say is the Cubans did not start helping the liberation movements in Angola. They've been helping the liberation movements for a long, long time. The Angola thing became more prominent. In the first place, it was made prominent by immense American propaganda. And the second place, it was more substantial than before because of the real threat. The threat to Angola was very serious. The South Africans had occupied their country. They had occupied southern Angola before independence. Before the 11th of November, they had occupied southern Angola. And that country was under immense threat from the South Africans and from the Americans. These are very strong enemies. If the Americans decide they're going to be enemies of MPLA, you think MPLA is not going to feel nervous? The MPLA was made to feel very nervous by that alliance between South Africa and the Americans. So what could they do? Now to say now people should not help Cuba because Cuba helped those fellows to help themselves, well, I I don't know. I leave that to my friends.
After the liberation of Angola, what do you think are the prospects, immediate prospects for liberation of Namibia?
Namibia, if the Western world is genuinely worried and they're not merely making nonsensical noise, if they're genuinely worried, about communist involvement and Russian involvement. Then they have wonderful opportunity this time. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. There is a United Nations resolution. We support it. We all support it. The Americans support it, the Russians support it, the Chinese support it, the British support it, everybody support it. Only South Africa does not support it. That her occupation of Namibia is illegal. The United Nations has appointed a high commission to take over the administration of Namibia from the South Africans and organize the elections there so that the people can decide for themselves the form of government they want. The real protectors of South Africa are the Americans and their Western allies. They have power. They have real power over South Africa. And especially now after Angola, the Americans and our Western allies can say to the South Africans, get out of Namibia. Get out of Namibia. And the South Africans will get out. So I'm waiting. I'm really waiting for this pressure now. If these people are really worried, because Namibia must achieve her independence. She will achieve it either through the pressures of the Western world, help from the Western world, or through fighting. The Western world has the power. They have. The Americans and their Western allies have the power to say to the South Africans, get out of Namibia. Your occupation of Namibia is illegal. It's not accepted by the international community. And we're the only ones who are protecting you there. So get out. Because we don't want to see the Russians getting involved in Namibia. That they can do. And I'm hoping they'll do it. If they don't, what is going to happen? The Liberation Committee of Africa will continue, because the liberation of Africa will continue. And SWAPO is there, and we will get the arms for SWAPO to fight for the independence of their own country. And the arms we are not going to get from Washington or from Paris or from London or from Bonn, we are going to get from the communist countries. The Western powers have it in their power, to use the word twice, to stop it. They can ask South Africa to pull out. And the South Africans cannot resist. They'll pull out. I hope they'll do it.
Thank you very much.